Welcome to Off the Cuff on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. My name is Mike Heck, and we're trying something a little bit different this week. You may be hearing this wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, but also we are live on the Loudmouth MMA YouTube page. So if you're watching there and watching here, actually, because we're live right now, make sure you subscribe to the page. But basically, for those who are checking the show out for the first time, this is Barbershop Talk. This is four guys sitting at the virtual bar talking MMA, and most of the stuff is based on questions that we've received via email or Twitter or now here on the show in the chat. So if you have a question, submit in the chat. We'll get to them, and we'll wrap things up with the soon-to-be award-winning buy or sell segment. We'll get to that in a little bit, so let us introduce the rest of the squad. First, Mr. Craig Allen. How are you, sir? Great seeing you for the second time in less than 24 hours.
Yeah, listen, Mike, I've broken down roughly 54 fights that are about to occur this weekend. No, I haven't, but some of these are less than enjoyable. And currently, I'm kind of like a version of Ray Shremmerd. And if you're a big fan of rap, you might recognize those two guys because they're Slim Jimmy, but nobody gives a damn about Slim Jimmy. They all care about Sway Lee. I'm the Sway Lee of Fight Night Picks, so you got Sway Lee for the next little bit.
I don't know how you top that, Kyle Steele, Mr. Loudmouth himself, who said after Between the Links last night, I don't know if I love being on Between the Links or hate being on Between the Links, but hopefully here on this show, it's all about the love, even though you're 20 minutes late. How are you, Kyle?
I was going to say the way you top that is by coming fashionably late. Apologies to the panel. Life happens, so here we are. Craig, can you be nice to me today? That's my only one. That's my one request, is just to have Craig be nice to me today.
I have to be on good behavior. After this, I'm playing hockey in a very conservative hockey league. So, yeah, I'll agree to that. But after that, all hell breaks loose. And I should not say those words. I'm going to get in trouble for just saying them now.
Oh, heck. Oh, heck.
We are very excited for that. Someone record Craig Allen playing hockey, because I would love to see that. Of course, we have Mr. Drake Riggs here from around 600 different outlets covering this fine sport. How are you, Drake?
I am great, Mike. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Good to be here. Lots of action coming up this week, like Craig said. All those fights to break down. Somebody's got to do it. So, yeah, let's do it.
Yes, indeed. So I know we addressed this topic on Between the Links, but I still feel like it's worth discussing after Saturday night, and maybe we'll kind of take a look at it from a different perspective. But Jones-Blachowicz knocks out Corey Anderson in the first round at UFC Rio Rancho. John Jones perfectly sitting right there watching it. They go back and forth. It was great television, right? It was really great television. So Dominic Reyes loses a fight to John Jones in a fight that most people think that Dominic Reyes won, even at second and third watch, right? So here's the question, Drake Riggs. I want to start with you. We're striking the word deserves from the picture, as always, but what is the bigger fight in your opinion? Like, if you had a stake in the UFC and your job was to match make John Jones's next fight and you had to choose between Blachowicz and Reyes, which basket are you dropping those eggs into?
I think that it's still Reyes, even after Jan's performance, because, I mean, yeah, it was a great win and all that. People seeing it, you get the highlight, the knockouts all over social media. Everybody gets to see that. John was there. That's great. He saw it in person, live and everything, had that moment like you were saying. But I still think people probably have seen Reyes and Jones more now, and then they want to see it again now because of the controversy and how close it was, and everybody's been talking about it. I still feel like the buzz is just more surrounding, the fight that we saw last week between Jones and Reyes. And it's not like, Reyes' stock dropped or anything like we've been saying all week since it's happened and all that. I mean, I think that the Blachowicz fight could be, decently sized, and the odds are already like kind of out for a potential fight. And surprisingly, they're still pretty heavily favoring John despite his last three performances. When it seems that everybody's kind of catching up a little bit, and Blachowicz has, if he touches you, he can put you to sleep, as we saw. Not that Corey Anderson has an amazing chin or anything, not to knock him, but we've seen him knocked out before. I just feel like, man, after seeing something that's so not obvious, but way more people agree that John lost than he didn't, than winning. It seems like there's still more, from what I've seen, it feels like that's still the fight to make, is the rematch. I don't know exactly who you could give Blachowicz in the meantime. It doesn't really matter. I've seen the throw out of Anthony Johnson, who's maybe coming back. I think that would be a kind of a crazy thing to do. Maybe put those guys on the same card, the rematch, and then Blachowicz versus Johnson. Or, I love Yuri, so that would be an amazing first debut for him. So obviously maybe jumping the gun in a lot of people's minds. But yeah, I still think it's the rematch. So yeah.
Craig, what do you think?
To answer JHK MMA's question, it's Davidson Baker, if you want an answer to that in the YouTube comments. Now, if we continue along with the question, I know what Mike Heck's answer is here. It's to go with Dominic Reyes. And I think Dominic Reyes is quite an obvious choice, and I would agree with it as well. I think that the fight was so close. There's such an argument as to whether or not Thiago Santos deserved a shot at John Jones once again. Realistically for me, and I voiced this opinion over on Between the Links, but I think it should probably be Santos and Reyes, and Blachowicz gets a title shot. But there's all sorts of different things on the line. And I think realistically the smart way to do it is continue to have Reyes against John Jones, make that fight, have the rematch just right off the cuff, if you will, and then have Blachowicz fight Thiago Santos when he's good and ready and healthy.
Kyle, I've gone on record and said that if Jan Blachowicz didn't get the title shot after the Luke Rockhold knockout, that he's never going to get a title shot. But Blachowicz, like with that Polish power, he's like Popeye with the spinach, man. It's crazy how much better he's getting at 36, soon to be 37 years old next week. But what's the bigger fight in your opinion right now? Is it Jones-Blachowicz or is it Jones-Reyes 2?
I think the bigger fight is still Jones-Reyes 2. Just again because of the opinion on how the fight was scored, but I mean the further we get moved away from that, the less and less appealing it's getting. So maybe ask me again next week. You know, it seems to have already be losing. MMA is very much a what have you done for me lately, and it seems like lately that time period is shorter and shorter and shorter. You know what lately really means. So. They really got to book this stuff right away if you really want to keep the entertainment factor. I feel like, again, you know, we're striking deserves out of our vocabulary, but Jan Blachowicz has seemingly earned his way here. So I'm cool either way, and this is why I said on Between the Links, I think they should just fight one another. Just have Jan Blachowicz fight Dominic Reyes. And there you go. Because I think if you polled 100 people, it's going to be 50-50 on who deserves to get it, right? So that's a perfect time to have John Jones present, have it scheduled where he's going in the cage after the fight, make it a big thing, you know? And because I think they both have now, to a certain extent, earned the right to fight John Jones. I think if anyone has earned a rematch with John Jones, it's Dominic Reyes, right? With that performance that a lot of us think that he won. And then, of course, Jan, you know, going through the division like he has.
Yeah, I think Reyes is the bigger fight. I understand the Thiago Santos fans out there that are thinking, you know, where's Thiago? Why is he not in this conversation? And to that, I say, go back and watch that fight again, because most who have gone back and watched it a second or a third time, they didn't see Santos winning the fight. In fact, a lot of people that I've talked to said they saw Jones winning 4 rounds to 1 the second and third time around. But it's different with Reyes, and I think that fight specifically needs some closure, especially in this division. And if Jones is going to move up to heavyweight in the future, you know, you got to close the book on this before he makes that move. Now, if you're Blachowicz, I fully agree that you shouldn't fight again unless it's a title fight. So maybe let Jones and Reyes battle it out. Let's get some closure. Let's take a risk that nothing sketchy and crazy is going to happen to force a trilogy fight. You know, whatever happens, happens. Blachowicz gets the winner, and we're good to go. But on the flip side, we have Corey Anderson. This is the guy that everyone thought was going to win on Saturday. You know, if Corey wins, is he going to fight John Jones? Is he going to skip the line? And Blachowicz just comes in there and slams the door on those discussions, and overtime sort of goes back to the drawing board. Not much has come from, you know, the Anderson side of the equation, Craig Allen. A lot of people are talking about, is it Reyes, is it Blachowicz? But what about Corey Anderson? If you're in that matchmaker chair working on Corey Anderson, where do we go with him?
Yeah, super easy. Hey, Corey, so you beat Johnny Walker, pure striker. We're going to keep feeding you to the wolves, and you're going to get a guy in his UFC debut. Here's Yuri Prochazka. Do whatever you want with him, but you're going to lose. But here you go, and that's all you get, because I don't think the UFC likes Corey Anderson all that much.
Kyle?
I can't say I disagree. I mean, if you've set the stage, he's doing the macho man. If you've already set, it's kind of like on Saturday night where we got one guy get DQ'd. So when it happens again, you've already set the precedent, right? We've set the precedent for Corey Anderson recently to go through prospects. Who else is really a legitimate prospect at 205? You have Rakic. I mean, where's he at? Is he 205?
And you just signed a new deal. Yeah, 6 fights.
So I mean, so maybe that could happen after I think he's already booked. But I mean, yeah, put him up against a legitimate prospect, and again, step into that gatekeeper role.
Drake, I have a hard time believing that you're going to go against Craig here. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong. I think Yuri deserves everybody and anybody right away. Give him the top 10. Give him Jones right now next, actually. That's the fight to make. Just give Yuri the title shot right away. I'm fine with that. No, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's weird to think because Corey has fought a lot of people. I mean, the name that came to mind was like Misha Serkinov, but that's kind of like, that feels weird. I don't know. That doesn't feel like the right one to do for Corey after this. And yeah, it seems like maybe they're not the biggest fans of him because, you could have argued he deserved the title shot over Reyes. I think you could make that argument. He had a longer streak, I mean, maybe Walker wasn't. Well, I mean, Walker was higher ranked than, Weidman making his, light heavyweight debut. Yeah, I think Yuri's the perfect fight. I mean, because if, Yuri comes in there and beats him, that's a guy that people know and are aware who was close to a title shot. That puts him right up there. If Corey takes him out, I think that's still a good win because, Yuri hasn't lost. He has only lost one in his last, 16. I don't remember what it is. It's so all over the place. He's been winning a lot. That's the point. So I think that's a win-win for both guys. I mean, maybe Corey wouldn't like it necessarily because he's the new guy coming in and all that. But, hey, I mean, he took this fight when he, maybe didn't need to just to stay busy. And we saw what happened. That's the dangerous thing about this sport.
Going back to the first question, our man JHK, who after asking who the sluttiest was, and we already unanimously picked Davidson Baker on that, says Jones will fight Jan Blachowicz. Jones chooses his fights at this point. UFC needs him to fight as often until he loses. Then the division comes interesting. That's true. And then what's crazy is once the division gets as interesting as it's been in a long time, he'll jump up to heavyweight, and then there'll be like a whole new door opening up. But in terms of Corey Anderson, I'm with Craig and Drake if we can make that happen. But I have a hard time believing Corey's going to take that fight. So for me, give him some time. Get Anthony Smith because win or lose, no matter what happens in April, there's some history there. They have a little back and forth going on. Win or lose for Smith, it makes sense. So let's go back and do that one and let's have some fun. So I figure at this point, we go to Kyle Steele's favorite topic, grading cards. Kyle Steele loves putting grades on cards. So we're going to start with you, Kyle Steele. What are you grading UFC Rio Rancho as a whole on Saturday with the main event and the 2 DQs and the married couple fighting on the card and debut finishes, all sorts of craziness, like the 12 days of MMA here. What do you think?
Ooh, buddy. Listen, give me an A minus. Give me an A minus. Give me an A minus. Listen, I am here for the weird. I love it. Let's make shit interesting. Let's get some. What card have we talked about more than this past card in recent memory? I mean, there's topics for days. All we're talking about on the card prior is John Jones. Everything else is completely gone away. There are quite a few little topics we're talking about on this card still. There's one main one, but we're still talking about several topics here. I'm on board, man. I am all the way on board. Let's make it interesting. Let's get weird with it. Let's have fun with it. In all seriousness, probably like a B minus. Probably like a B minus. That's my more serious take. I did really enjoy this card. I thought it was very fun. I wish you didn't have the 2 DQs, obviously, but at the end of the day, again, it created kind of this weird storyline, and I'm cool with that. So, I assume we're going to get to the DQs. All right, so I won't say anything else, but it created an interesting storyline with seeing one guy, how he handled winning by DQ versus how Diego Sanchez did. And there's this very interesting dichotomy there where one guy was so disgusted and mad that that's how he was winning. And by the way, was losing the fight up to that point. And it looked like that's where it was headed, right? It looked like he was probably going to lose that fight and was just absolutely disgusted that that's how he's winning. Diego Sanchez, just completely clear-headed as could be, just like talking through his options. It was a legal knee, so, would that be a DQ? Can I get my coach in here so I can talk to him about it? And just completely level as can be. He's like, yeah, I'll take the DQ. Then stands there and lets that hand get raised and just, mean mugs the crowd. It was just the difference between those two people and how they handled it, I think is a storyline that isn't being talked about enough.
I mean, I wasn't sure where I was going to go next, but when Craig's looking like Max Nordstrom right now, which if you grew up at the age, you know who Max Nordstrom was. Craig has the hot take sunglasses on, so that means magic's about to happen. So go ahead.
This is like continuation of Between the Links, and we had like an unspoken promise at the start that I was going to take it easy. But what are you talking about? Like, this is a year that had a fight this show. The premise of the start of the show is still focusing on a card that happened a week and a half ago. We're still talking about John Jones and Dominic Reyes. I don't think anybody other than the country of Poland and a small percentage of Americans give a damn about the main event between Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz. ESPN cares. Do I care? I don't cares. I don't cares. I cares more about Donald Cerrone and Conor McGregor and the implications at women's flyweight that fight had than I care about anything that happened at all in this card. You know why? Because exactly what I just said. None of it made any sense, just like this card. It was so stupid. It was one of the worst cards in recent memory. I'm talking fights between Raulian Paiva and Mark De La Rosa that nobody's going to remember. They didn't remember it on Sunday. They forgot about that fight. And it was a good fight. And Raulian Paiva looked great. But realistically, Brock Weaver was seated on his butt and got kneed in the head and more or less knocked out. He couldn't continue in that fight. Referee made a kind of a chintzy call. Fight's over. Jason Herzog did the right thing, and then it gets weird. And we're talking about Diego Sanchez being clear-headed. This is a guy that's been through wars, and he's 38 years old. The cobwebs are very much set in. I mean, at this point, there's house cats roaming around. There's field mice jumping in and out. It's a weird situation. So if I can take the sunglasses off and be serious for a bit, and I'm going to answer the question, if I had to give this card a letter grade and why, this is a card, and I know Drake Riggs liked the tweet, so I'm free and clear here. There were 6,449 people that went to this fight in Rio Rancho. The UFC is not going to go back to Rio Rancho ever. The way that those two fights ended and the fact that there were that few people that were able to attend because it was such a small venue, they're not going to go back to Utica anytime soon in New York, and they're not going to go back to Rio Rancho anytime soon. And I can say that for damn sure. And if I'm not right and it happens in the next 2 years that they book a card in Utica or Rio Rancho, I give up.
Wow. Hot take indeed, Craig Allen. I love it. Drake, what's your grade?
Well, first of all, I have to agree with John's comments in the comment section there, with the biggest surprise being Diego's coach knowing what a DQ was, not Dairy Queen. But yeah, I think this is actually an A+, and I'll tell you why, because it just reminded us what the superior rule set is. All right, everybody, we got to go to the global rule set, go to Ryzen, Pride days, get those knees and kicks on the ground. That's what this card proved to us. All right, then none of that would be illegal. All right, that's what we need here. That was an A+ for the card. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm serious
about the superior rule set.
I'm serious about that. I'd give it like a C+. I mean, it was all right. There were some moments that didn't see coming, like John Dodson got a knockout in 2020. That's kind of crazy. I was like, whoa. And against a legit prospect in Nathaniel Wood. Obviously, the main event didn't see it going that way. Co-main event was awful. I really didn't think that was a good fight whatsoever. He can flip and do all he wants. It was not that entertaining in my opinion. And just that fight overall, it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen before it even started. Let's talk about that. How bizarre just the whole lead up to that was. Pereira dancing his way to the octagon, and then the peacocking going on by Diego and his little lip breathing thing where he's like, I can't even do it.
The lip quiver.
I don't know. Yeah,
the lip quiver.
Took a page out of Mick Jagger's book.
Hannibal Lecter stuff. I don't know. That was the weirdest shit I've ever seen. And I've seen some weird shit. Yeah, this card was all right. Not the best. I don't think I was, I was happy to see Shandy Young had some good success early on, but then, just got a little overwhelmed as it went on. I think I'm looking forward to her at flyweight. Daniel Rodriguez fight that, turned out well as Craig Allen predicted. That was really fun, but yeah, not the best. I'm not going to remember. It's not the most memorable card, obviously. Obviously the main event did give us, that moment between the champ and the potential next contender, but it was all right. It was nothing crazy.
I think C sounds good to me, and I'm like the positive thinker amongst the four of us. But and if honestly, if the main event didn't end in such a cool way and the co-main event didn't keep us looking at Diego Sanchez's Instagram for the next 72 hours, it probably would be like a D plus or a D, maybe even a D minus. But alas, here we are. But let's keep the grading going because, Kyle, I'm so excited to see what you think of UFC Auckland coming up on Saturday. I mean, we got a very solid main event, which we talked about a lot on Between the Links last night, between Paul Felder and Dan Hooker. What are you grading UFC Auckland on paper as you look at it right now?
Can I real quick? Can I go back to the prior topic?
You would love
just for a second.
Yeah,
it bothers me a little bit because again, another narrative that's not being discussed is how smart of a fight that Ferreira just fought. He looked now it was against Diego Sanchez, but he wasn't flipping all around. He did it like once. He wasn't flipping all around. He was staying at range. He was being very, very smart. I think that is something that's not being discussed. It absolutely should.
Kyle, when you moonsault and you don't even know what you're moonsaulting on, as soon as you step on a dick, you're done. Just like when you knee a guy in the cage, you're done. You step on a dick, you're done. You knee to a downed opponent, you're done.
Now, can I say, and this is very embarrassing for me. I'm getting older. Craig is very young, very handsome, if I might add myself. I'm getting very old. I genuinely don't know what that meant. So, and I don't know if that's just a young man's thing, or I don't know, but I don't know what that meant.
He means the backflip, and if he landed on his dick, it'd be
okay. That's what it was. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was like a.
It was a literal definition.
Okay, got it. All right, let me grade UFC Auckland. And I'm not the biggest fan of this card. I'm a very big fan of the main event, obviously. This card has a. I'm not a fan of the storylines with this card because, again, it's very, very lacking. But the fights seem like they're going to be good. It's just a matter of getting there and watching it and seeing a good fight and going, oh, that was a good fight, and then realizing, oh, great, that was a good fight, and it was absolutely pointless in the grand scheme of the UFC. So that's my only issue with the card is, again, I really just like the – and there's a way to have these storylines that you don't have to make a card stacked. I mean, there's other storylines. The only thing with this card that it's not this card. Never mind. It's the card after this one, so ignore that.
If this is a pay-per-view, Kyle would give it an F minus, but it's on ESPN Plus, so it gets bumped up like 2 grades. Is that accurate?
That's how it works for everybody, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like if you're going to charge people $65, $70 to buy something, well, you got to deliver. I mean, you got to deliver, and you can't just have one fight on it. Why am I paying for one fight? If I'm paying for one fight, it should be $30.
True that. Drake, what's your grade?
This is an A double plus simply for Yan Xiaonan. I am a massive Yan Xiaonan stan, so I am dead serious. I cannot wait for her to finally be back. None of you say anything about this. All right. I am excited for Yan. No, it's like a B, I think. I think it's good for a fight night. Paul Felder, Dan Hooker, amazing fight. And you want to talk about storylines, man. Dan Hooker called out Paul Felder while he was interviewing him in the octagon. When does that ever happen? That's exciting stuff. And now they're going to fight, punch each other in the face, get all bloody. These guys love to get crazy. That's an amazing main event. Get 5 rounds out of it potentially. Oh, I cannot wait for that. Co-main event's a little bit, Jimmy Crute and Michael Michelle Olichaychuk. I got to get my pronunciations right here. All right. That'll probably be a finish too. That'll be fun. We got Kevin Aguilar back in Zubera Tukugov. He's a part of the Habib camp, right? Unless I'm getting people mixed up there. Emil Meek's back, guys. When's the last time he fought? I don't even remember, but he's always
Jake exciting. Matthews. Don't forget about Jake Matthews.
Yes, that also, and they're going against each other, so that's gonna be fun. Kai Kara France, Tyson Nam, Loma Luke Boonmay versus Angela Hill. I mean, there's some very solid matchups on here for a fight night, and it's kind of. Whenever they go down to Australasia, get down to New Zealand, Australia territory, they put on, some fighters who are sure to get the crowd pumped up. And I mean, I think that main event is going to get people freaking out, especially as it goes on. I will be so surprised if that's a boring fight. I think this is a very solid B for, location, fight night, all that stuff. I'm excited for this one a lot more than I was last week.
Yeah, I'm a positive thinker because, obviously great main event on Saturday. I love the Felder Hooker fight. I love every fight that Drake just named off.
Especially Young Jimbo.
Yeah, and I like the Nam Cara France fight a lot. I think that's got the making of a fight of the night written all over it. It has to make it to be a fun card, and so I'm going B-. How's that? And our friend JHK, who we're shouting out quite a bit here, he has like a dozen interviews on this card, so go check those out. Craig Allen, what do you think?
I've been using this saying about getting excited for cards, and there's nothing that gets my dick hard as much as a fight between 3-3 women's flyweight Shanna Dobson taking on 8-3 Priscilla Cachoeira, whose strike differential is a -4-1 in the UFC. She absorbed 203 strikes against Valentina Shevchenko and threw 3. How exciting is that fight? No, overall, this card, a B- is fair. But there's fights on these main cards now that all of a sudden make zero sense. Karolina Kowalkiewicz has lost 3 in a row. Yan Xiaonan, yeah, it's a good fight, and it's a good step up for if she wins. That's a former title challenger. You sell it that way. But overall, it's not a great fight. The fight that I'm looking forward to most is the Tarantula, Jalen Turner. This is a guy that came into the UFC, and it's been mixed results. He's a Ruka Sport guy. Like, he's 9-5, and he's training with one of the bigger gyms with such a good striking coach in Jason Perillo. And he's taking on Joshua Culibao. And I did a lot of research on this guy. He's a good fighter at 145. It just kind of sucks that he has to fight such a rangy guy at 155. But look at Josh Culibao to be a guy in the UFC coming out of Australia that trains at Australia Top Team with Mokhtarian brothers to maybe make an impact at 145. And if you go over to his Instagram or his Facebook, good buddies with Volkanovski as well. There's a lot of talent there. So I'm looking forward to that debut against Jalen Turner.
All right. So we're going to get to the soon-to-be award-winning buy or sell segment. This is always fun. Let me just pull up the emails here. So if anybody's watching right now, I know we started a little bit late. We apologize for that. But you can throw some questions in the chat. We'll get to them in this segment. But let's hit these email questions right off the bat. We will start with this one. From Anthony. Anthony asks, for the panel, buy or sell Aljamain Sterling and Ariel Helwani talking about the UFC rankings and calling out certain media members was a bad look. So Craig, will start with you. And for those who don't know what Anthony's talking about, this is more of Aljo kind of throwing out the names, and Ariel, I guess, didn't do much to stop it, even though, I mean, I guess even going to the notion that people on the rankings committee don't actually exist. Like, they're not real people. But be that as it may, Craig, your thoughts, buy or sell? This is a bad look from both those guys.
Yeah, it's a bad look. I've been critical about the UFC's rankings in the past, but I backed it up with saying who those people are, what they do. And I was very critical in one show where I almost backed up and apologized for it, but I stick with what I said. It's just a shame that now with the UFC's rankings, there's not as much transparency. You can't click on there and then see, oh, media member A picked this. You can, however, go to @the_rank MMA or hardcore rank over on Twitter. You can find my picks, and you can find Drake Griggs' picks, and you can find picks from all different members of the MMA space, and go ahead and put us on blast. I'm speaking for myself, but also for Drake here. I know he feels that way. Fill up his DMs and tell him he doesn't know what he's talking about. But no, realistically, you can't just bash somebody and not be able to back it up or have a healthy conversation about it. I'm of that mindset. So yeah, it was kind of off base.
Kyle, I don't know if you saw it or know what the question is. I know you're a very busy man. The housing market in your neck of the woods is just jumping right now. February is the time to buy, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think about that whole thing?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad look at all. I mean, Aljamain Sterling is a fighter. He can have whatever opinion he would like, especially when he is a ranked member in a division. It's like any other fighter having any opinion about anything, especially if it's directly related to them. So it's certainly not a bad look for him because who cares? He's not in the media. He's a fighter. Like, he can bash and be upset about whatever he would like to. And then as far as Ariel not stopping it, that's not really his job. His job is to, at the time, right, he's talking to Aljamain Sterling. So his job is to have that conversation and not rebut what he's saying back directly to him. And even if that was his job, why would he do that? What purpose would it serve? Why pick that moment to educate? If you want to then release the interview and give some type of commentary to maybe educate. This is something we talked about. I have a different whatever. If you want to do that, that's fine, but it's completely unnecessary. I think people are big enough to understand what's happening there, why the fighter specifically has this opinion. Now, if it was Ariel Helwani doing this, well, that's a different story, right? If you're saying this and you're getting upset and you're not backing it up, as Craig was talking about, that's an issue. But for the fighter to do it, who cares? And it's not the job of the media member to then auto-correct it on the spot, or like I said, even to respond to it with some type of retraction. That's not his job. His job is to report and to interview and to get the news out there. So I don't think it's a bad look at all. I think people understand what's happening here and that this isn't. Again, I make tons of opinions on this podcast, and I think people are aware, not just on this, but on the network. I think people are aware that opinion is mine, and that does not mean that Mike Heck shares whatever goofy shit I'm saying on my dumb podcast I do with Fred, and same with Fred and whatever he's saying. Like, we all know how this works. Like, people have their own individual opinions, and again, it's not our job to go out there and correct the opinions of others.
What do you think, Drake?
This is interesting. I didn't exactly see this what this was here, but I'm very passionate about rankings. I've had my own rankings since about 2015 or so, just to toot my own horn or anything. Not that they're amazing, but I've been doing that. And a shameless plug, though, is I did do a piece a couple months back for the Scrap, the process, the rankings, and the UFC rankings and the panelists, where I reached out to every single one of the panelists that I could possibly reach. Some just were not findable. So there is, some weirdness about it, but I ended up hearing back from, I think it was 5 or 6 of the 14, right? And, they were all pretty happy to talk about it, answered the questions I asked. I, asked things that, I think most people would want to know about, and you can go check it out in the article. I won't tell you every exact detail because it'll be a while. But, I think it's okay to, especially for a fighter, to be critical of these people who are placing them in certain things. But at the same time, after talking to them and everything, and just, doing the research I've done, I feel like, just from what I've gathered, it might not necessarily be completely on these panelists, which might sound weird, but the UFC kind of, it seems like they push them in certain directions, not kind of, what I mean? Like, to, hey, we have a suggestion, this guy's here now, you can put him there, or they won't let them put certain people in the rankings. It's just a very weird kind of overall, I don't know, a concept, I guess, when it comes to having the media members do it, because then it kind of compromises, their just everything about them, because then they get bashed for, being potentially shills and all that stuff. It's kind of more complex, I think, than people realize. And obviously, you have these people's, not their fate in your hands exactly, but obviously it impacts how everyone thinks and all that. But at the same time, I feel like it's not totally on them from what I've seen. I would recommend checking out that article, not just because it's mine or anything, but I think I did, good enough research to help people understand more about what goes on with the process of all this. And they have changed some things this year by adding on some more people and obviously changing, if you can see who specifically is on there. But as for just the normal point, I think it's totally fine for fighters to do it. And, media, if other media members like Ariel was to be bashing a little bit, that's a little bit weird, I guess, especially since he's with ESPN, which is affiliated with UFC now. But if he didn't do that, then it's whatever. Just, it's a really weird topic. I can't give an exact concrete answer on it, really. But yeah, people should be held accountable no matter what they're doing, right? So there's that.
I mean, I guess if I have to make a choice, like, I'll buy it. Because I think, like, if they could do it all over again, they probably would. But at the same time, I completely understand where Aljamain Sterling's coming from. Like, this guy deserves a shot at the belt, and he's deserved it for a little while now. So I understand his frustration 100%. But the fact that he's not getting a title shot now has nothing to do with the rankings. It's just that they're making this wacky, crazy bantamweight title fight between Henry Cejudo and Jose Aldo, who just lost to Marlon Moraes. So I understand his frustration, but has nothing. That fight's being made. Even if Aldo's the number one guy in the division right now, which he should be, he still wouldn't be getting the title fight. So it's just a nutty situation. It has nothing to do with the rankings and who creates the rankings. Ariel likes to throw like gasoline on the fire just a little bit, which he did. I mean, it was interesting, but I think they would do it better if they could do it all over again. So let's pull up this next one. Is from Joseph. He says, Buy or sell that Thiago Santos should get the rematch with John Jones first and let Blachowicz and Reyes fight it out to face the winner. Interesting. I'll be selling this because I touched on it earlier, but I get it. There are some people who scored it for Santos, that fight with John Jones last summer, but that's a big fat no for me. Kyle, interested to get your thoughts on this based on Between the Links last night. Should Thiago Santos actually get the rematch with Jones and then let the fight that you wanted to happen?
Again, I'll buy half the question, but no, he should not fight Thiago Santos. There's no reason for John to fight right this second. He could sit out for a couple months and let Dominic Reyes and Jones-Blachowicz fight. So, yeah, I'll buy half the question, but Thiago Santos, no, absolutely not. There's no – that was poor judging on the other way, it being a split decision, where, again, when we're watching this Dominic Reyes fight multiple times, I still think the fight was a lot closer on the rewatch than when I initially watched it, but I kind of still think Dominic Reyes won. So yeah, I think he did not win. Santos did not win the fight with John Jones, and I think every single person in this panel is on the same page with that. But I think this panel might be split on who won the John Jones fight. So that's why the rematch is even being discussed. That's why it's even a point. So no on Santos. But still, I'm all about seeing Jones-Blachowicz and Dominic Reyes fight each other.
Anybody buying this in its entirety?
So,
nah.
Yeah. I'm selling this on Facebook Marketplace for like $1.50.
I would absolutely love to see Santos fully healthy, with legs against John Jones, but you got to strike while the iron's hot. And I mean, that thing's cooled down since then, and there's nothing he could do about it. He literally had his ligaments all torn in his knees. So, hopefully we get to see it at some point, but no, you can't do that next. That would just be kind of out there.
It's just like Anthony Smith. He retired Alexander Gustafsson in Sweden. Nobody's calling for him to get a title shot. Like, you missed that opportunity. I like the Reyes and Santos fight, and Blachowicz getting the shot, but I know we disagree there. But yeah, I would have to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, whatever they want to do, I'm going to watch no matter what. But this is a fun one. Drake, we're going to start with you here. Buy or sell that Merab Dvalishvili will fight for the UFC bantamweight title by the end of 2021. Come on, Merab. Come on, Merab. Obviously, big win for Merab over Casey Kenny. He looked great. He's just this giant barrel of energy that just doesn't stop. Title fight by the end of 2021, Drake? Buy or sell that?
No way. Big fat sell. Are you kidding me? Not a chance, man. Like that was a great performance by Merab. Merab is a very fun fighter to watch. All that. I think he's got potential, to climb the rankings. And some people argue he should be 5-0, even though he was finished in one of those fights. Yeah. Anyway, so no, simply for the reason we talked about this on episode 1. There is so much ridiculous BS happening in the bantamweight division right now with who is getting talked about for title shots and getting title shots over actual contenders that I will be so surprised if that happens by 2021. I don't know if ever at this point, if Cejudo remains on top for, I don't know. It's just such a crazy, I cannot imagine that. He's not like a crazy personality or anything. Very, fun fighter to watch for, hardcores and everybody, but I don't know if the casuals are like, oh man, I'm dying to see Merab. He's not like super flashy or anything. Crazy gas tank, as we saw on full display this last time out. But no way, no. That question kind of feels like, is Ronnie Yaya going to get a title shot anytime soon? Back when he was streaking, no, not happening. I wish he did, but no. Yeah, man, I'd be surprised. Hard sell.
I think Merab's stock grew tremendously on Saturday. I mean, it didn't grow like, holy shit, he's the number 5 ranked guy in the division, but he should probably be in the top 15. I mean, if Casey Kenny was ranked number 15 and the performance Merab had, especially getting a 30-25 on one of the judge scores. By the way, who the hell judged that fight? 30-25 and a 29-28. That is insanity, but that's another conversation for another day. I think it's an interesting question because obviously he does train with Aljamain Sterling and they're like best friends, and who knows what this division is going to look like if Henry Cejudo rattles off a couple of title defenses. I mean, 2 title defenses for Cejudo, that could take like 2 years. Like it could be 1 a year, honestly. Exactly. And I think Merab, like with his skill set, he's got the potential to be a guy that fights for the title. I just think kind of what Drake was alluding to, there's just so much against him right now. And when I spoke to Merab before that fight, he said after he beats Casey Kenny, and I thought this was brilliant. He didn't shoot for the stars. He picked a big name that's outside of the top 15 that could make a lot of sense. He wants to fight Sean O'Malley. I mean, that's a fun fight. Like, if he goes out there and beats Sean O'Malley, yeah, he's on the map. And obviously O'Malley's got to win on March 7th. And even if he doesn't, he could still make that fight. But O'Malley just has like a lot to deal with. If there's one guy in the UFC that I feel really bad for, I feel bad for that guy, which, Craig, I want to touch on this, but you're not here, so forget that.
Come on, Merab!
I knew it.
Sorry. All right, Craig.
Not Sarah.
Craig.
Come on, man.
Yeah, get out of here.
Come on.
Join in the family.
Hey, guys.
Craig, first of all, buy or sell that question. And second of all, how much does it suck to be Sean O'Malley right now? Because every time your phone rings, you're wondering if it's the UFC calling you to cancel your fight in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, And when you see the word Austrian online, you have to just cringe every time you see it. For me to go back to it with a guy like Merab Dvalishvili, the best fight for him, and it's not going to happen he'd have to string together 2, 3, maybe even 4 wins. And this is all contingent on whether or not this guy is still around at 135, because he very well could retire. It's not my man Hanayaya, who I absolutely loved, and he was like a hardcore dream. My number 9 ranked bantamweight on the hardcore rankings, Rafael Sunsao. Make that fight happen. How much fun would it be to see Rafael Sunsao and Merab Dvalishvili just going skill for skill, going low kick, spinning back fist, going takedown heavy, and never getting a title shot? Rafael Sunsao and Merab Dvalishvili, book that fight.
Interesting.
That is good.
Interesting. Yeah. Kyle, what do you think about Merab and fighting for a title in the next 22 months or so?
No. I mean, there's basically a 0% chance that he fights for a title by the end of 2021, which it sucks. I mean, the problem is I don't think he'll be able to fight enough because in order to get to that point, let's just say this could happen. So what's the pathway to get there, right? Back step. How do we get there truly? 2 things have to happen. One, Cejudo has to not be champion. So if Aldo beats Cejudo, I don't know if that's going to be any better of a situation, given the weight cut that Aldo has to go through to get to bantamweight. And then, I don't know, I think Aldo's probably kind of mad just in general about the trajectory of his career. So I don't know. I feel like he's going to hold up the division too if he wins. So you at least got one fight, and no matter who wins that fight, I feel like the division's still held up a little bit. So you gotta supplant Cejudo the fight after that, or supplant Aldo the fight after that. And then Merab has to, Mirabab, I believe was his name. Was that his name? Mirabab?
That's Keith. That's how Keith said it.
Yeah. Merab has to just blow through some people. And that doesn't seem to be what he does. He has entertaining fights, and they're fun to watch, but he doesn't just – the chat got me. He doesn't just blast through people like a Jan Blachowicz way, right? Like he's not doing that where you're walking in and knocking someone out. Listen, he strings together 3, 4 maybe first-round wins, and the 4th one is somebody that's in the top 5, then sure, he could get there. He'd have to do it pretty quick. And like I said, with Cejudo being there, I don't know, unless right now he just starts getting smoke. Like right now he's got to start saying Henry Cejudo's name, start saying Jose Aldo's name, and then you got to start blasting through people. So that's the pathway to get there. So the question is that likely? And the answer is no.
All right, I got a few more. This is from Jason, and it's interesting, and he's calling us on our bullshit right now. Not really, but he knows how we are and how we like to answer some of these questions. So Craig, he says, quote unquote, and this is not just to you specifically, this is to all of us, you have to choose a side. You cannot say it depends on ... You have to choose a side. Buy or sell Craig Allen. We've seen Daniel Cormier's last fight in the octagon.
So he's going to fight Stipe. I'll sell it. That's the easy answer. So.
Is it though? Is it?
I'm not going to elaborate.
What if Stipe doesn't come back? What if Stipe isn't back until like October? You think DC's going to wait around that long?
There is currently a metal net sitting in a frozen hockey rink, and I've got to blast rubber pucks into that sucker. So if I can be as quick as I can on this show, I'm going to say sell, and it's going to be Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic International Fight Week.
Kyle?
I am going to sell as well. Cormier fought Anderson Silva at UFC 200. Even if he can't fight Stipe. Jeez, oh Pete. Even if he can't fight Stipe, they'll put him against somebody as a retirement fight. He'll fight somebody, and who knows who it'll be, but he'll fight somebody one more time at least.
I have no reason, no real reason why I'm saying this, and I have no insight whatsoever on this, but I'm going to buy that we've seen his last fight. I just think he has so many opportunities ahead of him, and there's so many things he could do, and I think he's going to run out of patience, and that's it. Stipe is the only fight he wants. He wants to run that back. He wants to retire as champion. If he can't get that fight, what's he going to do? Was he going to fight Misha Cirkunov? Is he going to fight? Who the fuck's he going to fight? Derek Lewis again? There's really nothing else there for him at this point. John Jones, if he can get the Jones fight, yeah, but that's it. It's John Jones or Stipe, and it better happen fast, or he's done. There's just too many things he could do. Drake, what do you think?
He's going to go be president of the UFC.
Correct.
Right. I'm going to sell it. I think that he'll wait for Stipe. Obviously he's got a lot going on. It seems like he's been toning back his commentary roles and whatnot that he usually does outside the cage, analyst work and all that. He did this last event, but that was the first one he had done since the fight. I feel like it'd been a long time since we'd heard him on commentary, but no, I think he'll wait because he's a competitor, man. He's a lifelong competitor. He's not going to want to go out on a loss like that. He's got the title shot just as once Stipe's ready. It's there. He's already got it. And I think that what we could see happen if we have to wait a while because Stipe's got his eye injuries or whatever exactly is going on, we could see, let's say, an interim title fight. Oh, there's one of the interims. Oh no. Curtis Blades and somebody. I don't know. We could see the trilogy between Blades and Ngannou for the interim title, maybe something. And let's say that happens. We could still see Daniel skip over the interim champion. If you want to go back to 2008, I think it was 2008, when Big Nog was the interim champ, he got skipped over for Frank Mir. No, Brock skipped him over and fought Randy, even though Big Nog was the interim champion. I think we could see something similar like that, both heavyweight division, both really unique situations, even though that Brock one just really shouldn't happen, but it was because it was Brock. So it was hey, sorry, Big Nog, we're going to give it to him. I could see something like that happening. Either way, yeah, I think we're going to get that trilogy fight between Daniel and Stipe, whether it's next year or 2030.
Yeah. I hope we see it. I hope we see it sooner rather than later because I know DC wants to kind of get on with his life and, host Good Morning America and stuff like that, which he could do. But a couple more because I know Craig's got to play some hockey. He's like our little Cam Neely here. Buy or sell, the best fight of the weekend, the one that more people will be talking about, more views from a highlight or a finish, etc., will come from Bellator, Kyle Steele.
Boy. Sell. And I'll base it almost exclusively off of I still don't think Bellator has the pool to dominate the cycle unless the UFC card is just way more boring than what we're expecting. I think most of us, the answer we gave about it was, it wasn't a great card on paper necessarily as far as, again, the matchups and whatnot, like what the matchups mean. But I think we all kind of agreed that it has good fights and fights that should be fun to watch. So unless nothing happens, I would say that'll still be I'd say that would still be the most interesting fight. And Craig has to go, so can I kick it over to Craig, Mike? Is that okay?
No, Craig is on my time right now.
Give it over here. I've got the hot take sunglasses on. And I'm just touching all of these acoustic squares because there's probably about 41 of them there, which is as many fights as Bellator has this weekend. So if you throw a dart at a board or you just start touching acoustic tiles, in my case, eventually some of them are going to stick. And about 41 of my acoustic tiles are stuck and they haven't fallen yet. So knock on wood for me. And how about that? Bellator is not going to dominate the news cycle. When you have a main event of a card that has 3 fights on the main card in Leah McCourt and Judith Ruiz, one making her promotional debut, the other one who's had 2 fights in Bellator and she's 3-1. you're not going to generate buzz. You might generate buzz in England and Europe to an extent, maybe even just Western Europe, but Bellator is not where it's at. I mean, Bellator 239 is buried in Thackerville, and your best fight of the weekend in Franz Moambo and Ricky Bandejas is happening in Europe, and that's on another main card because Bellator has 3 main cards in 2 days. There's 239, there's 240, and then there's Dublin. Some fights are in the morning, some are in the afternoon, some are in the evening. You know what? Again, you throw enough darts at a board, you touch enough acoustic tiles, you get lucky, but Bellator, it doesn't even come close to UFC this weekend. Enjoy the fights, though. We
got the hot take sunglasses for that answer, and it was pretty amazing. I'm going to sell it. I think Hooker and Felder is just that good. Like, no matter how it ends, that's it. Dude, Craig's gone, huh? All right. But it's really what shocked me. All right, Drake, buy or sell that the best fight card, the one that's going to get the most tensions coming from, or the best fight from the weekend's coming from Bellator.
You know, I was going to be really on the fence about this one, but I won't be because of that comment we got on one of the last couple ones. But I'm going to sell it because Yan Xiaonan's on the UFC card, man. So I mean, right there, instant steal. She's gonna kill it. She's gonna get crazy flying knees. She's gonna do some Michelle Pereira stuff. All right, no, for sure. No, give a serious answer. I mean, with so many fights, it's like kind of hard to think like, oh, one of those. There's gotta be something to come out of that. And I mean, you look at the names, I didn't realize that there were like some pretty solid people buried on this, Bellator 239 one. Sean Bunch, I mean, that's a notable name, maybe not a crazy guy. JW Kaiser's back, one of Jake Hager's victims. And then, we got Denise Keelholtz, Chris Sunshine, Javi Ayala is always, fun. Timothy Johnson is there too. Making
a Tim Johnson fighting?
Yeah, exactly. So that's all you need to know. And that's on the first card only. Miles Jury. I mean, there's a lot of people I think who could do so. And Brent Premise, I think, is one who, he got that Gogo Plata last year, which kind of got buried, which makes me want to flip back to the opposite spectrum of this. Like, no matter what he does, people aren't going to pay attention for whatever reason. And because he's in Dublin, for some reason, I have no idea why they keep sending him overseas. But
and the Dublin card is on a tape delay. So let's not forget that piece of it too. Because what was the question, Mike? What was the actual question, the wording?
That the best fight of the weekend will come from Bellator.
Okay, I was thinking it was like dominating the news cycle or something. I thought that's I don't know why I had that question in my head, but
in that case, maybe, then if it's fight specifically, then I can't see anything overshadowing Felder and Hooker. I mean, come on.
All right, last one real quick before we say goodbye. Buy or sell Drake Riggs that the Contender Series is going to be a lot more strict this year in terms of who will get the opportunity to compete for a UFC contract. So I guess what this gentleman's trying to say, because this is like a 3-paragraph email and I'm not going to read all of it, they're looking for guys and gals with more fights, more big promotional experience, what have you. Do you think the Contender Series is going to go in that direction where they're looking for more experienced fighters, or do you think they're going to do what they did last year and have guys who are 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, and just try to fill those cards with whatever they can find?
Yeah, I feel like sell. I don't really see why they would kind of change it up. If it's not broken, don't fix it necessarily. I mean, these fighters that they've been signing have panned out for the most part. I don't know exactly what the stats are on how successful people have been, but it seems like they've been doing pretty good from what I've paid attention to and seen them, because they always like to bring up Contender Series guys. Seems like they always do good enough. Maybe if they don't win, at least they're competitive. Like they earned the shot to be in the UFC, I think, from everything that I've seen. Unless I'm missing something, I missed out a little bit on the last Contender Series, but I don't know. That's an interesting question. I remember, I don't know who it was because I want to give a shout out. It might have been John. Shout out to John again, JHK, who proposed the idea of like having veterans fight against like the younger guys, like a veteran versus prospect style on Contender Series, or people in the UFC. Like, let's go back to last week with Ben Saunders, who's just, he's on the cusp, he's hanging on, he should have been cut, but, let's give him one more chance. Put him on Contender Series to keep his spot against a prospect guy, something like that. It's just an interesting idea. I don't think they'll go in that direction, but if they're going to change it up, I mean, I think that would be an interesting way to do it. But I don't see the reason to really change anything at the moment. Keep doing what you're doing. Seems like a formula for success so far, unless I've been missing something. You tell me, Mike. I know you pay attention a lot better than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I want to say 60-40 is probably the number right now. I think every season 3 fighter who earned a contract has fought already or is booked to fight. except for Peter Barrett. I think Peter Barrett's the only one who's not been booked yet. I think one of the last ones is TJ Brown, who's fighting next week in Norfolk against another Contender Series guy in Jordan Griffin. So, I mean, I think they'll find a middle ground between the two, because I feel like seasons 1 and 2, we had more experienced guys. Like the main event of the first Contender Series was Matt Bessette versus Kurt Holloway. I mean, talk about two guys who have a lot of experience. And there are guys out there that are still fighting, like guys like Sean Santella. I mean, you got to give that guy a Contender Series shot, for the love of God. He's got like 20. He's got a shitload of fights. He's the top ranked flyweight in the country outside of the UFC. No matter who you talk to, like, how is that guy not in the Contender Series? Like, there's a lot of guys out there. You know, Brandon Royval, who's got like a bunch of fights. Like, there's a bunch of sort of more on the veteran side of the equation who haven't gotten their Contender Series shot that probably should get it at this point. So I think we'll find like a middle ground between. I still think we're going to see some 5-0, 6-0 guys in there, but I think we're going to see some guys with some better records and more fight experience, some LFA champions, so forth and so on. Kyle, what's your thoughts on this?
Is the Contender Series on Fight Pass or ESPN Plus now? To stay on Fight
ESPN
Pass
Plus
and move to ESPN Plus, right? All right.
Yeah.
So if Ben Saunders
You love that.
it is on a Contender Series card,
Here's an example.
I will cancel my ESPN Plus membership. So if this gets back to the brass, I don't bluff. You can ask my clients. I'm not a bluffer, so I'm not bluffing. If Ben Saunders winds up on the Contender Series, I will cancel my ESPN Plus subscription. So just FYI. I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be completely unchanged, because I think we're doing. You had your 5-0s and maybe you do 4-0s and whatnot. You had your name or two, and then you had your veterans. I mean, I think it's going to basically look identical to that. They still have to try to mine that. You can't just ignore a guy or a gal who is at the beginning of the career but is going to be something. You can't ignore those people, because if you do, they're going to get snagged up by somebody else. And there's more and more competition. The bigger the UFC gets, the more competition it's creating. So you got bare knuckle boxing. There are outlets for these people to go to make money. So you can't just ignore the up and comers. You have to, if you see something, yeah, you're only 3-0, 4-0, but let's get you over here. Let's get you over the Contender Series. Let's give you a shot at the UFC. Let's see if really there's something there. You know, if they get a big win, let's ink you that night. You know, like, let's make sure we snag these guys up. So I think it's going to look basically identical, and for that exact reason.
Just to touch on that real quick, that's where the developmental deals can come in place. You know, they've done that with a couple of people. I mean, they did it with Greg Hardy, the most notable one, obviously. But I mean, that's like a sneaky little way to make sure that they don't get snagged up. I mean,
yeah, and you keep them. Let's get them under contract, and then
guys like William Knight. I think William Knight got the only developmental deal.
I think didn't Hooper had one too? Chase Hooper?
Yeah, Hooper had one.
Yeah.
That was I forget. There were a couple.
Love Chase Hooper.
They probably should have gave out some more last year, for being honest.
By the way, if you go back in our chat, when Davidson Baker posted a selfie, I was 99% sure that was Ben Askren. Go back and look at the picture in our chat. It looks exactly like Ben Askren, and I don't know why.
That's offensive.
Because Davidson does not look like Ben Askren, for whatever it's worth. He looks nothing like him. But if you go back and look at the picture in our chat, it looks like Ben Askren. If you don't know you're looking at Davidson and someone tells you this is Ben Askren, you're like, oh yeah, it's Ben Askren.
I love how Davidson was voted the sluttiest on the Loudmouth MMA podcast family of networks here. Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, definitely. Did you see how close he was standing to the microphone last night on Between the Links? He was some sort of crazy light. He was like Macaulay Culkin in that Party movie. What's that, Party Boy? What the hell is that movie? Party Monster.
Yes. Party Monster.
Yeah, looking like all sorts of old drugged out Kevin McAllister all up in here. But I think we've just about run out of time here. Kyle's rubbing his face. That'll do it. Craig's already off playing hockey. He's like Adam Banks from the Mighty Ducks. Kyle, anything you got coming up you want to let the folks know about?
Yeah, you guys can always check out the Not Safe for Work MMA show. We release it usually Sunday mornings. It's a rumpus of a good time. So please come out and check it out. And subscribe to the podcast. There's some absolutely wonderful content on this network, if I do say so myself, and I'm not involved with all that much of it. So if you can't stand me, I'm only on 2 shows. There's like 10. So you're good to go. You're free and clear most of the time.
Drake, what do you got coming up?
You can follow me on Twitter at @DrakeRiggs_. As usual, I just released today my sit-down interview with Chris Sunshine Lencioni before his fight at Bellator 239 this weekend. I went to his gym, Sunshine Athletics in Fabiano Schner Jiu-Jitsu in Canby, Oregon. A little bit of a drive for me, but it was worth it. Great time, very fun chat conversation. You can find that on my MMA News. It's on my Twitter, right there, waiting to be read and watched and all that. I got some interviews planned out for the week. I'll be at Submission Underground 11 on Sunday. We got Alec Winter versus Mike Perry in a grappling match. Whoever thought we would see it? Going to be some fun stuff there. Hopefully looking to talk to some of them too, Chael Sonnen and all that stuff. And yeah, also implore anyone who's interested in that more rankings talk to go check out that piece I did for the scrap. It's called The Rankings. It's the process, UFC rankings, and the panelists. I think that's the exact title, but if you look up something like that, it should show up. So yeah, it's what I got going this week. Yeah, fun stuff.
Can I give a real quick just shout out to the man at 7:49? It is 7:53. At 7:49, I received an email from ESPN Plus saying access your exclusive content. They heard my threat.
Oh,
they heard my
watching.
threat, and they're trying to keep me.
Oh, man. And I think they've done a great job. Follow me on Twitter at MikeHeck_JR. You can subscribe to my YouTube page, youtube.com/MikeHeckMMA. Interview TJ Brown, who's fighting UFC Norfolk next week. I got a bunch of other interviews coming up. This is kind of an interesting week because here in Massachusetts, February, like President's Day week, is always vacation week. So my kid is home with me, and it's not as easy to navigate around the schedules and do a bunch of interviews when you have a child who wants to be Spider-Man running around the goddamn house. But I love him. He's adorable, and he's the best Spider-Man ever. But it's very tough to do interviews when that's going on. So you never know what's going to pop up. There are things in the works, so make sure you subscribe to the network. We'll see what's going on. And that's it. For Drake, Kyle, and Craig, I am Mike Heck. Thanks for watching. We'll try to do this again. We wanted to try something new live for episode 5 for Off the Cuff. Make sure you subscribe to the network on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever it is you find your favorite podcast. You can find it here as well. So thank you all very much. No need to be scripted. It's better to be off the cuff.